Hey everybody, Jared Bruning here with the Daily Bellringer, and this is Daily Bellringer Now, my new little live stream thing that I'm trying to do, even though tonight isn't technically a live stream because I am pre-recording this interview. And tonight I'm really excited because I'm joined by another great YouTube history content creator. The American History Geek is the name of the channel, and this is Will Mahan, who is the creator of this, and he's got some really cool content that he shares on his channel that I think would be great to be used in the classroom. And so we're just gonna have a quick conversation about some of the stuff he's doing. And so, Will, thanks a lot for being here tonight with us. And again, like I said, I think you have a great channel that's got some great content on it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm really excited to chat with you.
All right. Well, I guess I got a few questions here for you. So, what made you decide to start making U.S. history videos?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Jared. So I think a lot of my interest in starting this channel originally came from my own interest in U.S. history and what my grandmother Oma was able to share with me, which was this robust fascination in the story of America. I think oftentimes it can become really easy to just cast aside history as just a bunch of obscure things that happened in the past, things that don't have any sort of relevancy to who we are today. This was certainly a line of thinking that I fell into as a middle schooler, and it really wasn't until my grandmother began to break things down, break down topics like the American Revolution into a real story that I began to see the value in not just understanding the past, but appreciating it. And I believe that the American story, right, is ultimately the story of the underdog. You look at a lot of these big events in our nation's story, and you begin to see a trend of resiliency. Everything about the American story was groundbreaking, as I'm sure you know.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the Battle of New Orleans, where American soldiers were completely outnumbered. Yet in the face of this incredible challenge, Andrew Jackson managed to unite farmers, militiamen, people of a variety of backgrounds and identities to build this enormous defensive structure along the Mississippi and then protect it. It's that kind of resiliency and fortitude that we as Americans can and should look up to. Looking at the history of hip hop, one of the world's most iconic cultural and artistic movements, which was started in the South Bronx at these big neighborhood block parties by everyday Americans. American history really shows us the power of the individual, from these incredible American generals in the War of 1812 to some of the amazing musical artists like DJ Kool Herc in the formative years of hip hop. And these incredible stories, they really provide us with a way to appreciate the past and the incredible people who against all odds, really brought us to where we are today. And I think we can really learn from that resiliency and use it in our lives today. And I think that's a big part of why I decided to start making history videos, was to highlight this, to really share this passion for not just the events that happen, but the people behind them, why we are where we are today, what we can do better moving forward. I think those are all things that really excite me in terms of doing history content. And that's what I hope to do with my channel. From new events like the Texas power crisis in 2021, which I recently covered, to old events like the Culper spy ring, George Washington's elite team of spies during the Revolutionary War. These are all topics that I think have a lot of relevancy, and they brought our country to where we are today. Good or bad, I think it's really important that we analyze these topics, and I think they can inform us and really build fortitude and show, how much our ancestors really went through. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I really like the way you brought up like the whole underdog, idea that Americans, as Americans, we always love an underdog. Just like the Super Bowl's coming up here. Well, tomorrow, right now where we're filming this, and I'm
Yeah.
rooting for the underdog because I want to see a team win that maybe hasn't won before, and that seems to be part of like the American ideal. Is this ever since like I said in the American Revolution, we were the big underdog and we somehow were able to pull that thing out. So that seems to be part of something that's ingrained into our culture and our society as wanting to root for the underdog. And then I thought it was cool too, the way you brought up, you said your grandma kind of shared stories of history with you, and that kind of got you into history and everything.
Absolutely, yeah. My grandmother Oma, she was super into history. She unfortunately passed away a year ago, so
Oh,
that
I'm
was,
sorry.
that was great. Yeah, it was rough, but because I had a really close connection with her.
Mhm.
But she really, I think she spoke about history in a way that didn't just make it a bunch of random facts, kind of a way like your channel does, with your warm-up videos and your analysis videos, really making it tell a story. So you feel like each historical figure is a character in a larger narrative, because I think that's a huge part of telling what history is we have to form a narrative. And there can be different narratives in stories, right? Not every story has, there's good things in American history and there's bad things. There's things like, the American Revolution and the founding ideals of our country, which were based on the principles of John Locke and Thomas Paine, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, these really brilliant figures. But there's also really bad things in American history too, like the Japanese internment camps and the history of slavery. And those topics need to be shed some light too, because they inform of us, of who we are, and not everything in our country is good. Like any other country, there's good.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. There's good and bad, and it's important that we recognize and be proud of those good things, but then we also understand and know those bad things that happen, because again, the whole cliche, you don't want to repeat history, so we're trying to learn that. I was going to bring up too, you're talking about your grandma. One of the big reasons I'm into history and I love history so much is because of my dad. But I have to tell you a stupid story. My dad wasn't even into history at all. He really wasn't that interested. It was just every time we would go on vacation as kids, he would always take us to a Civil War battlefield or some kind of historic site. And when I grew up, I began to realize the whole reason he took us there was because it was free. Because he was cheap and he wouldn't take us to Disney World. Instead, he took us to these historic sites, and it ended up making me love history and become a history teacher and everything. But anyway, like I said, I love your videos. I love your content. So I was going to ask you, what is your favorite part of making videos? Is it, the research, the filming, editing? What is it that you really like about making your videos?
Yeah, so that's a really tough question. What I will say is that recording is definitely the worst part. A lot of times that requires just a ton of patience, just sitting down for hours to record lines, which I'm sure as a content creator yourself, can be really grueling. But in terms of my favorite part, out of research and editing, I would probably have to go with the research end. Editing can really be a big payoff, seeing all of your hard work translated into an actual video. But I think the history nerd in me just finds the research end of it fascinating. Writing the scripts and making information flow seamlessly can obviously be a challenge, but it's definitely what I'd consider to be a really exciting challenge. And I think it's a really important challenge too, because again, you have to make this content engage people, and you have to make people understand why these past stories have relevancy to us today. And with any topic I've done, with the California Gold Rush, I think there's tons of things in those topics that can be applied to the real world. If you look at the California Gold Rush, you have a lot of, who made the money in the gold rush. Was it the miners, or was it the people selling the shovels? Of course, it was the people selling the shovels. Yeah. And that applies just as much as it did back in the day as it does today. And a lot of those people that went out into the gold fields, they the 49ers, they dug for gold, and they traveled all across the country, which at the time was quite difficult. They made these strenuous journeys and fought diseases as they were coming, illness overseas. And they got there and they started digging for gold, and they didn't make much money. And it speaks a lot to the importance of workers' rights, and a lot of things that I think that we as a country can make improvements on. So yeah, I think for sure that those kind of topics, even though they seem very abstract, they have a lot of relevancy to where we are today. Obviously, the person selling the shovel, that's entrepreneurship, and they should be rewarded for that. But we should also be looking out for the little guy too. Yeah. So I think that's really important.
Do you have a tough time with, because you're talking about, you like researching your topics. Do you have a very tough time trying to whittle it down to because I know you kind of have a time frame that you're kind of looking at your videos should be right around this time frame. Do you have a tough time whittling all the information down to get it exactly the length you want it?
It entirely depends on the topic. The War of 1812, that was brutal to try to edit down. there are just so many battles, and you got so many theaters of war. Any war video like that's going to be really tough to whittle down into a 20-minute range mark. I think that video hit 20 minutes and 21 minutes and 20 seconds, if I'm right. So it's really difficult to whittle that down. But there's other videos too where, the Niagara movement, really fascinating topic. And I went into a lot of detail with that video. But I definitely wish that I perhaps, made the video a little less like just, putting out, like just the facts. And I tried to weave more of a narrative with it. That's one of the things I kind of wish I did with that video. But there's other videos where I've worked on it. I wrote the script. I had the script. I read the script and I was like, this hits the time mark, but it's also, it shows the relevancy. And I think I nailed it. And that's not every video.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tough to do with these historic topics because, I mean, I think, you're kind of the same as me in that there's like so much cool stuff and so much interesting stuff that you feel is important, but it's like you kind of have to get it down to that time frame that you want to make sure you keep within. So again, again, my channel, I'm coming from the perspective, since I'm a history teacher, I'm trying to share my content with history teachers to be able to use in their classroom. And so, the next question I was going to ask you here are what are some things, I guess, your videos offer that you offer with your videos that are different than maybe some other history videos on YouTube? Like, do you have a website? Do you have like quizzes? Like, what are some different things you have that go along with your videos?
Yeah, so every single one of my videos has a Google quiz which comes with it. So I think that's something that can definitely be used in the classroom. And we're also right now working on unleashing Kahoots because we know a lot of the students really like those. So that's a project that we're going to be undertaking in the future. But in terms of how they can be used, I think AP history classrooms can, these videos can definitely be used there. They go into a lot of detail, but I don't want to narrow my audience. I think that, any age group can really learn from this. There's people who are 10 years old who are probably, like watching history documentaries that are 2 hours long and on the Civil War and other topics, that's finding it fascinating. So I don't want to whittle my audience down at all, but definitely in AP US history and AP government and politics, 2 classes that I took in high school. I tried to take my experiences from what I learned, what I had trouble learning, and I tried to incorporate that into the channel. A lot of us look at these old history textbooks, and they're very informative, and they can be very useful. But it's also a very, I think, stagnant way of teaching. It's a very limited teaching model. I think that using a lot of history content like you do, hopefully like I do, like Mr. Beat does, Matt Beat, who also does history videos, which I watched as a kid because that was very useful for me. And it helped bring out my interest in history. I think that using those resources, at least in congruence with these history textbooks, can be really beneficial to students, especially visual learners.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you because, again, the way students learn today is not the same as the way students learn. Like, when I was, especially, I'm older, so, when I was in junior high school, we didn't have YouTube. And I mean, honestly, now that I look back, I'm like, man, how would my life be different if I would have had that resource when I was there? Because, again, I'm a visual learner myself. And today it's like when we go to learn something, how do we go to learn something? Usually we end up going to YouTube or Google and looking it up. And so, like the content you got, is just great because it shares so much detail and everything. And I was going to throw in too, again, being a teacher, these quizzes that Will's got are really cool because they go into a lot of detail. They offer a lot on there, and there's something that you could take and use in your classroom, and then you could even take that Google form and kind of edit it down and take what questions you want out and even insert your own questions on those Google forms. So it's really cool that Will is like already giving you that. And then, like you said, you're doing Kahoots as well. You're gonna you're starting to use make some Kahoots that are already out there. Right? You were saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And my mom actually gave me that idea. I was talking to her about my channel, and she was kind of like, oh, a lot of times, especially younger audiences, find the Kahoots really fun because it's competitive. There's that competing with other kids in the classroom kind of thing, and that helps make kids want to excel and stuff. So that idea definitely came from my mom, and I think it was a very helpful idea because I do remember Kahoot. A lot of kids really enjoyed that. I remember our Spanish teacher used that a lot. So
Yeah, and as,
it's a
as,
really
as a teacher, if you have somebody that this is a dependable source that has good quality Kahoots that are already made or good quality, quizzes that are already made. I mean, a lot of teachers will come back again and again and they'll continue using that resource. So that's awesome that you're, putting that out there as well. I guess we already talked about, how you might see this being used in the classroom. I mean, when we talked before, when I've looked at your videos, AP U.S. history. I mean, I see this like, your video fitting in perfectly with like an AP U.S. history class. I don't know if you had any other thoughts on that, like, where you might see this being used in the classroom or anything.
yeah. I think that it's obviously my videos, there's a lot more information that can be accessed beyond my videos, but I think that the 10 to 20 minute format that I've used for most of my videos definitely helps break them down in a very detailed and organized way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that these videos in particular, if teachers are looking to use them, they can use them however they'd like. But I think that as the content creator, if I would recommend this content to a teacher, I would definitely recommend it as a resource to use to study before a test.
Mm-hmm.
You can send students home with this video and maybe attach the quiz if you'd like, and say, hey, here's the American History Geek video. The test is tomorrow. You can use this the night before, and it'll give you a very detailed, organized summary of everything that happened. I also think in terms of looking at how this can be used in the classroom, I'm definitely trying to um, make my content very holistic.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of different types of content that's featured on our channel. We have things like Lift Every Voice and Sing, the Black National Anthem, which is a very cool topic. It's about these two brothers, the Johnson brothers,
Mm-hmm.
who ended up writing this beautiful, beautiful song to commemorate President Abraham Lincoln. And that's a really, really fascinating story. And I think that, especially as we're heading into February, it's Black History Month, but
Yeah.
any month, I think it's a very good, cool story to study, because I never learned about that in school. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a huge part of Black history. So that's really cool.
You kind of talked about this a little bit before, but I mean, what are some topics that you're kind of, I guess, thinking about right now that you might be getting to here in the next, few months or whatever?
Yeah, so in terms of our next video, I guess I don't know if this video will be out by the time this interview airs, but I guess I'll just say it in case. But our next video is going to be the Detroit Study Club. So this was a literacy organization that was formed in 1898 by African-American women in Detroit who wanted to help advance education and social mobility for Black Americans. So that's an exciting topic we have coming up.
Yeah.
I'd love to do the Vietnam War soon. And then in terms of kind of like a final, I guess, teaser for what's coming up with our channel, I definitely want to cover more topics from the American Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big goal of mine going into 2022. So I'd expect to see a lot more American Revolution topics covered as well.
Yeah, actually, just the other day I was talking to my seventh grade class about the Culpers spy gang, and I didn't realize. I guess I hadn't looked through your content. I didn't realize you had a video on that. I should have pulled that up and had them watch that. Maybe when I get back on Monday, maybe I'll have them take a look at that video or whatever. Since we just kind of were talking about them the other day, I'm sure there's stuff in there that I don't know that's in your video that I'll have them take a look at. But again, your website. I'll put a link to your website, of course, down in the description of this live stream and everything. So I guess, is there anything else you'd like to share about your channel or about the American History Geek or anything?
Yeah, well, I think that I'd encourage everyone who is big fans of Jared's channel to also and who's tuning in with this interview. Thank you for watching, and it would be awesome if you could come check out the channel. Check out some of the content. If you like the content, then it'd be great if you could subscribe, maybe like a couple of the videos. Obviously, Jared, we know the YouTube algorithm, it's very difficult to break through. It's very, very difficult. Yeah. So some of the videos, I know you did the Puritan video, which got like 40,000 hits, which is insane. But yeah, some of the videos you think that they're going to hit, 20,000 and they hit 200 and you're like, oh, okay. And some of the videos you do and you're like, oh, this won't get too many views. And then it gets like 6,000 views and you're like, oh, wow, it's pretty good.
Well, the big problem is like we're history nerds. And so it's like these topics that we're like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. Everybody wants to learn about the Johnstown flood. And then it's like you go put your video out there and it's like nobody's watching it. It's like, I think a lot of it is the algorithm has a problem with nerds that are interested in these like very specific topics. And nobody really wants to watch those videos. But anyway, yeah, hopefully there's a few videos. I know you got some videos that are great that are out there. And again, yeah, definitely check out American History Geek. Definitely subscribe and keep watch on what Will's putting out there, because he's got some great content out there to be used in the classroom, or if you're just simply a history nerd like us and you're wanting to watch some videos. So thanks for joining me tonight, Will, and I appreciate you taking time and working with me to get all this recorded tonight. So hopefully we'll be in contact maybe again, and maybe find some other ways that we can collaborate maybe in the future.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Jared.
All right. Thanks, Will.